And as you can see at the top of these notes, there are a lot of vocabulary terms. And so we are basically going to write these down. I'm going to talk about them as we go, and then we're going to just be doing lots of practice with the vocab, because you need to be able to understand what these words are and apply them to our problems. So the first term that we are going to look at here is transversal. And a transversal is a line that cuts across two or more lines at different points. Now, what you should be doing when you take notes is you should be pausing the notes so that you can keep up, because I'm not going to read the words over and over and over again. So you pause the notes, take it, and then when you're ready, come back and press record again. Press play again. So to draw a picture of what I've just read, if I have two or more lines, so there's two lines right there, a transversal is a line that is going to cut across those two lines at different points. So my transversal would be my pink line there, which is T, and you may want to get some colors for this, these notes here, because we have lots of different things we're going to be pointing out, and I'll be using different colors. The next term or vocabulary item is corresponding angles. So they are two angles that occupy corresponding positions when a transversal intersects the two lines. So these lines would be nice and straight. We would have done it with a ruler, but we're just taking some notes here, so you would have sketched them out. So corresponding positions would be like this angle right here. If I labeled that angle number 1, and I'm just going to go around and go 2, 3, and 4 in the little parts of the angle. So there are 4 angles that make up this little intersection. There are also angles that make up this intersection, and I'm going to label my lines right now M and N. That way you may, if I have to refer to one, I can say M or N. So I'm going to label these 5, 6, 7, 8. So which angle is in the same position as angle 1, which would be basically that top right corner? Which angle down here? Right, it would be angle 5. So these are in corresponding positions. Angles 4 and 8 are in corresponding positions, 3 and 7, and 2 and 6. They're in the same spot. Okay, so that's what it means by corresponding angles, angles that are in the same position. Alternate interior angles. So alternate interior angles, it says when a transversal intersects two lines, two angles that lie between the two lines on opposite sides of the transversal are your alternate interior angles. So I'm going to point these out with orange. Here's my alternate interior. So if I had angle 2, it's alternate interior. So on the inside of where the lines cut, so M and N, you got to stay in between, but opposite sides of the transversal. So 2 and 8 are alternate interior angles. 3 and 5 are also alternate interior angles. And then there's another item that we're going to look at up there. They are alternate exterior angles. You can ignore this. This is for one of the examples over there on the left. So when a transversal intersects two lines, two angles that lie outside the two lines on opposite sides of the transversal are alternate exterior angles. So if I look at my picture up here, alternate exterior, if I pick angle 4 and I use it in brown, outside the line, so outside M and N, I'd have to be either 6 or 7, but opposite sides of the transversal, it would be 6. So 4 and 6 are alternate exterior, 1 and 7 are alternate exterior. Okay, we have some more vocab terms over here. So this is vocab continued now. So we have complementary angles. So if I had two intersection points, two intersecting lines, and they intersect at a right angle, and I would denote that that's a right angle because there's that little square that goes in the corner, that means it's 90 degrees. And then I cut one of these angles, they're all 90, I cut one of them with a line there. Then A and B, I have two little angles now, but what did they add up to? They still add up to 90 degrees. So complementary angles are two angles where the sum of their measures is 90 degrees. Supplementary angles are angles where the sum of their measures is 180. So for example, if I had a 90 and a 90, it's been cut in that right at a perpendicular angle there. A and B would be supplementary angles because they add up to 180. So one way I remember this, which one goes with the 90 and which one goes with the 180, C comes earlier in the alphabet than S, and 90 comes earlier when counting than 180. So C goes with 90 and S goes with 180. The last vocab we have are vertical angles. And when two lines intersect at one point, the angles that are opposite of each other are vertical angles. So draw yourself a picture. And if I label these A, B, C, and D, A and C are vertical angles, and B and D are vertical angles. A and C are vertical angles, and B and D are vertical angles. All right, so let's look at example 1. It says, in the diagram, line T is a transversal. So there's our line T, and here's an M and N, but it's turned differently than what I had above there, and the numbering may also be different. So what they want us to do is they want us to name what type of angles these are. Are they corresponding, alternate interior, alternate exterior? And you're going to put those right there. So 1 and 5. If I find 1 and 5, which one is that? So pause the video, fill in the blanks, and then come back and see how you did. Okay, so let's see how you did. A was corresponding. They're in the same position. B, they're alternate interior. They're on the inside, and they're on opposite sides of the transversal. And C, they're alternate exterior. They're on the outside of the two lines, and they're on opposite sides of the transversal. If you have questions about those, please see Mrs. Wyman. Otherwise, what you're going to do right now is you're going to go on to the next page, but I'll leave my picture up here. And I need you to, again, quiz yourself and see how you do. Pause the video and write the answers to 1, 2, and 3 right here based on this diagram. Go ahead and do that, and then come back and see how you did. Okay, you should have paused the video and done this on your own. If you are just copying down what you see on the screen, you are going to be missing out and not learning the information. So you need to be doing the practice when we assign it. So 1 is alternate interior angles, 2 is alternate exterior angles, and 3 is corresponding angles. Okay, so good job in here. So what we're going to do now in the next part is they want us to label what corresponds with each one, and then what's an alternate interior and an alternate exterior. Just to make sure this is in your brain one more time. So what corresponds with angle 1? What is in that same position? Angle 5, the measure of angle 5. So what they're saying to you when there's a little m there, that means measure of. So if I said to you, I'm going to make this up, I'm not sure, I didn't measure it with a protractor, but I'm going to say that, 1 is 60 degrees. If 1 and 5 are in corresponding positions, I know that their measures are equal. So that means 5 would have to be 60 degrees. It's definitely less than 90. Here would be a 90-degree angle. I don't know, it might be closer to 70 degrees. But that's the idea, is corresponding angles are congruent. So 2 goes with 6, okay, and so on. Then alternate interior angles, the measure of angle 3 is the same as the measure of angle 7. Because they are, measure of angle 8, because they are alternate, now I'm really messing this up, alternate interior angles. All right, read the rules, Mrs. Lyman. Measure of angle 3 is on this side, on the inside. Let's just do a different color here, right here. So alternate interior would be 6, measure of angle 6, okay? And then number 1, down here, alternate exterior. So angle 1 again, it's on the outside, and then we need to get the opposite of it, okay, the opposite side, so that would be the measure of angle 8. So go ahead and fill in the rest, pause the video, see if you got them, come back in a second. Okay, so double check it, see how you did, and again, see Mrs. Wyman if you have any questions. Okay, so these are kind of fun when you get to problems like this. They're going to tell you a piece of information, and you're going to use all the stuff we've learned to find out everybody's measure of the entire diagram, okay? So it says, in the diagram, transversal T intersects the parallel lines M and N. So we know they're parallel, and those are little arrows. I'm going to make them bigger for you. But arrows like this tell us that we have parallel lines. So we know they're parallel. If the measure of angle 1 is 100 degrees, what do we know about the other measures? So we know angle 5 automatically. So here's angle 1. What does angle 5 have to be? It has to be 100 degrees because they are what kind of angles? Corresponding angles. They're in the same position. Okay? Now we also know the measure of angle 4 because 4 and 5 are what kind of angles? Alternate interior angles. So that's also 100 degrees because alternate interior angles are congruent. They have the same measure. Okay? Well, we also know the measure of angle 8. The measure of angle 8 is also 100 degrees because 1 and 8 are alternate exterior angles. Okay? Now, what would the measure of angle 2 be? So let's look at 2. 2 is on the other side of the transversal from 1. Well, what I know is that angle 1 and angle 2, they make up line M, don't they? How many degrees is a straight line? That's right, 180 degrees is a straight line. So if this line is 100, or this angle, sorry, is 100 degrees, how much does angle 2 have to measure? It has to measure 80 degrees. What kind of angles are 1 and 2? Back to your vocab on the first page. They're supplementary angles. Supplementary angles, angles that add up to 180. Okay, so now let's look at angle 6. Angle 6 is right here, and it's the same position as angle 2, so they're both 80 because they're corresponding angles. What about angle 3? Angle 3 is right here. Angle 3 and 6 are what kind? Alternate interior angles. You got it. So that's 80. And then what's 7? Yep, another 80 degrees there because 2 and 7 are alternate exterior angles. Okay? Also, we've got some vertical angles, and vertical angles are also congruent. So I would have known 6 and 7, they're vertical angles, so they would have been the same. 5 and 8, they're vertical angles, and so on. Okay? All right, so the next checkpoint here is saying, in example 2, what if the measure of angle 2 was 85? Could you find the measure of the other angles? So if the measure of angle 2 was 85 degrees, what would the measure of the other angles? Measure of angle 2 was 85 degrees. What other angles measure 85? Well, I already did a color code for you there, right? So we'd have it equals the measure of angle 3, the measure of angle 6, and the measure of angle 7. They're all 85 degrees. So then we would do 180 minus 85. So if it was just minus 80, it would be 100, but it's minus 85, so that's 95. So then the measure of angle 1 equals the measure of angle 4, which equals the measure of angle 5, and one more, angle 8. They are all 95 degrees. So I only gave one measurement for that entire picture, and we were able to figure out all of the other angles. So that's kind of cool. Okay, so let's look down at example 3. It says finding the value of a variable. So it says find the value of x, which is right here in that expression, that makes lines M and N parallel. Well, to prove that M and N are parallel, if the transversal T cuts it and these two corresponding angles have the same measure, then we know that they're parallel lines. So let's fill in their blanks here as they're working through the solution. The labeled angles in the diagram are corresponding angles. Lines M and N are parallel when the measures are equal. That's what we had just discussed together. So we know that 3x plus 15, that expression, has to be the same as 42 degrees. But basically we need to figure out what x can we plug in there to do that. So you would subtract 15 from each side and get 3x equals, we're subtracting 15, I'll squeeze it in there, 27. Divide each side by 3, x equals 9. So the missing measure would be 9 for that one. Okay, so that's the notes on this section. You're going to continue on in your packet and go on to the practice for this. Good job, guys. See Mrs. Lyman if you have any questions.